Hey church family, one of the things that we've been doing through some of these videos is I encourage you early on to work your way through the Psalms. And it seems like each week I kind of sprinkle in and do at least one Psalm. So I'm going to continue with that trend, and I'm going to do Psalm chapter 4. This one says, "Answer me when I call, O God of my righteousness. You have given me relief when I was in distress. Be gracious to me and hear my prayer. O men, how long shall my honor be turned into shame? How long will you love vain words and seek after lies? But know that the Lord has set apart the godly for himself. The Lord hears when I call to him. Be angry and do not sin. Ponder in your own hearts on your beds and be silent. Offer right sacrifices and put your trust in the Lord. There are many who say, 'Who will show us some good?' Lift up the light of your face upon us, O Lord. You have put more joy in my heart than they have when their grain and wine abound. In peace I will both lie down and sleep, for you alone, O Lord, make me dwell in safety." I think this psalm is so relevant for everything that's going on right now. I know that we're kind of coming to the tail end of, I believe and I hope that we're coming to the tail end of this lockdown and this quarantine and everything. The same kind of fear that there was early on surrounding this virus, I don't think is out. I mean, this virus it can be very, very deadly to certain people, but we know now that it's not deadly to all people. And so some of that safety and some of that fear and anxiety is maybe been lifted. But certainly there's a new kind of fear and a new kind of anxiety that many people are feeling right now. Those who are laid off early, those who have had to dip into savings in order to keep food on the table while being laid off, those whose businesses, they're not sure if they're going to be able to get back up off the ground, those who lost retirement investments, those who, and let's be honest, all of the extra money that's being printed and thrown around right now, our children are going to pay for it. And so there's all kinds of other forms of anxiety right now. A lot of civil liberties have been taken away. Are we going to get those back? Is the government going to continue to hold its heavy hand over the church and try to dictate to the church when and how and what it looks like when we meet? Will next flu season there be similar restrictions? There's all kinds of these things that if we allow them to seep into our minds, they can control us with fear and anxiety. And this psalm reminds us that our help comes from the Lord, that he is sovereign, and that he alone is the one who makes us to dwell in safety. There's a couple of things that I think are interesting. The first verse there says, "Answer me when I call, O God of my righteousness. You have given me relief when I was in distress. Be gracious to me and hear my prayer." My advice to that is be wary of any other means, whether it's coming from politicians, whether it's coming from employees, whether it's coming from any other form of help. Everybody is trying to help right now. Everybody is trying to tell you where to bank and what to buy and whose advice to seek in order to overcome some of these new fears and new anxieties. And what I would say is know that your help, that the relief, according to verse 1, comes from God himself, God alone. Make sure that he is the first place that you're turning for relief. I think verse 4 is really interesting right now. I don't know if maybe I'm just wired differently than some people, but I've had my fair share of anger during this whole thing. Anger at how it's been handled, anger at some of the lockdown, anger at some people's attitudes towards the whole thing, some of the reactions to it, anger in a lot of ways. Verse 4 is interesting. "Be angry and do not sin. Ponder in your own hearts on your beds and be silent." It's a good reminder to us. We live in such a fractured and in such a divided culture. And I think the advice in this psalm is, anger isn't necessarily sinful. It's possible to sin without being angry, but it's very, very possible to sin in our anger. And so the advice is, in your anger, don't sin. And sometimes that means being silent. Sometimes that means not saying something. Sometimes that means biting your lip. I've always said that the people who are most secure in their worldview are the ones who don't feel the need to rise up and defend it at every opportunity. right? Jesus said, don't cast your pearls before swine. Sometimes as those who are secure in what we believe and secure in the truth that the Bible provides for us, sometimes saying less is actually saying more. It says, offer right sacrifices and put your trust in the Lord. Then it says, and I think this is interesting, in peace, this is verse 8, in peace I will both lie down and sleep, for you alone, O Lord, make me dwell in safety. Again, there's all kinds of people who are promising safety and security and freedom from fear and anxiety right now. This psalmist knew that safety came only from the Lord. Only from the Lord, because ultimately what he saves us from is of far greater danger than anything that anybody else can save us from. And so let's be the kinds of people who tether our hope and tether our safety and our security to God and to his word and not to anything else, because there's a lot of misinformation, there's a lot of false promises right now. And so Psalms like this that tell us that we ought to place our faith and our hope and our security in Christ alone, they're going to be the things that keep us going and the things that keep us tethered to truth during a time of such uncertainty. Hopefully that's helpful. Hopefully you've been in the Psalms, and hopefully that was an encouraging word for you this week. May the Lord be with you.